Namaskar and welcome to Newsnight. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. While the world battles the COVID pandemic, international chorus is becoming louder for an independent investigation into the origins of coronavirus. A new report by an American media journal claims that researchers at Wuhan Institute of Virology in China felt sick with COVID-like symptoms in 2019. Now, this was before global outbreak of COVID-19. We'll focus on that in the show up ahead. In other news, mass gatherings of protesting farmers in violation of COVID guidelines. Centre's response on the WhatsApp issue. We'll also take stock of trail of destruction left by Cyclone Yaas and the relief work. All that and more. First, the headlines. Heavy rains in several districts of Odisha after Cyclone Yaas makes landfall. Winds up to speed of 150 kilometers per hour reported. Bhadrak, Paradip, Balasore bear the brunt of the cyclone. Flood-like situation in Dhamra as sea waters enter residential areas. Trees uprooted. NDRF and other agencies engaged in relief and rescue work. Many districts of West Bengal report heavy rains, tidal waves in North 24 Parganas, South 24 Parganas, East Midnapur. NDRF engaged in evacuating people to safer locations. Train services suspended. Cyclone Yaas also impacts parts of Jharkhand. Rains accompanied by strong winds. Bihar also received rains. Prime Minister Narendra Modi delivers keynote address at the virtual Vesak Global celebrations on Buddha Purnima, remembers noble ideals and teachings of Lord Buddha. Event witnesses participation of supreme heads of Buddhist Sanghas from around the world. Amidst the pandemic raging across the nation, farmers hold protests near Delhi borders. Blatant violation of COVID protocols. BJP questions Congress double standards on the matter. India continues to battle COVID-19. Daily recoveries continue to outnumber daily new cases for 13th straight day. Positivity rate stays below 10%. Recovery rate rises to over 89%. Centre addresses need for oxygen and medicines by the states. COVID vaccination drive in India achieves new milestones. Over 20 crore doses administered within 130 days. India becomes the second country after United States to reach the target. 42% of the population above 60 years of age has received at least one dose of COVID vaccine. Issue of origin of coronavirus gathers steam again. Wall Street Journal names China in a report as United States agency begin investigation. American health expert Dr. Anthony Fauci also supports probe. White House senior advisor says COVID investigation is a critical priority. On WhatsApp issue, government says it is committed to protecting right to privacy, but ensuring national security and maintaining law and order is the responsibility of the government. IT Ministry says revealing the origin of any message by WhatsApp is not violation of privacy. Let's begin with updates on Cyclone Yaas. The very severe cyclonic storm Yaas has weakened into a severe cyclonic storm by Wednesday afternoon. Earlier, Yaas pounded the beach towns in North Odisha and West Bengal as it hit the coast with wind speeds of upwards of 140 kilometers per hour, inundating the low-lying areas amid a storm surge. Maximum impact after landfall was felt in Bhadrak, Paradip and Balasore in Odisha. The fury of the Cyclone Yaas was also felt in West Bengal, affecting a massive cross-section of population. It is likely to now move towards Jharkhand with a lesser intensity by midnight. NDRF and other agencies continue to work in coordination to bring relief to the affected. Here are the details.
These visuals tell the tale of havoc caused by very severe cyclone Yaas as it hit the Odisha coast. Winds with speed of over 150 kilometers per hour followed by rains not only derailed life in all the districts of Odisha but also caused widespread damage. But thanks to the preparations by relief agencies and the meteorological department, situation remained under control. According to the India Meteorological Department, the process of landfall of the very severe cyclone started at around 9 am. The maximum impact of the storm was seen in Balasore and Bhadrak districts of Odisha. According to the Meteorological Department, Cyclone Yaas crossed the northern Odisha coast about 10 kilometers south of Balasore between 10:30 and 11:30 am. During this time, the wind speed ranged from 130 to 140 kilometers per hour, gusting up to 155 kilometers per hour. It then moved northwestward.
ये डायरेक्ट हिट उड़ीसा कोस्ट को करते हुए सबसे ज़्यादा बारिश उड़ीसा में रिकॉर्ड किया गया। सामुद्रिक लहर 2 से 4 मीटर ऊंचाई का नॉर्थ उड़ीसा और एडजॉइनिंग वेस्ट बंगाल का जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स है जैसे बालासोर, भद्रक, मेदिनीपुर और 24 परगना में रिकॉर्ड किया गया।
A very severe cyclone storm Yaas has completed the process of landfall. Rain will continue till tomorrow and gradually over coastal parts of Odisha it will be reduced during next 12 hours and over the interior parts that adjacent particularly Mayurbhanj, Dhenkanal, Anugul, Sundargarh, Deogarh, these are the districts in subsequent 6 hours. Fishermen are advised not to venture till tomorrow morning and see because sea condition is going to be very rough.
The maximum impact of the cyclone after landfall was felt in Bhadrak, Paradeep and Balasore in Odisha. Rains continue in Dhamra and Bhadrak accompanied by strong winds. Heavy rains have led to flood-like conditions in Dhamra and seawater has even inundated residential areas. In Paradeep, trees were uprooted leading to blocked roads. Some fishing boats have been damaged due to the cyclone as well. Power lines have also been damaged across several districts.
Large scale uprooting of trees and damage to tree cover. Roads are being cleared. Jajpur district, Kendrapada district, Jagatsinghpur district, virtually there has not been much damage to electrical infrastructure. There have been some damage to trees and restoration process has started. Electricity department has started safety checks of the feeders. So adequate teams are available in the field for road clearance, for restoration.
Rescue and relief operations are in full swing. Odisha fire and disaster response teams and other teams cleared the roads at Marshaghai in Kendrapada district. Many low-lying areas of the state have been flooded, causing damage to the crops. NDRF and fire brigade teams are engaged in relief work. Trees are being removed from several roads. People have been evacuated from Puri, Dhenkanal, Nayagarh, Ganjam, Jajpur and Angul districts. It is estimated that 7 lakh people have been evacuated to safer places across the state. The Indian Navy is providing relief supplies to the cyclone-affected people in Odisha. In Khurda, INS Chilka has made all necessary arrangements for coordination of operations in collaboration with state government agencies and with headquarters of the Eastern Naval Command at Visakhapatnam. Very severe Cyclone Yaas has impacted West Bengal as well. Rains and high-speed winds lashed many parts of the state. The fury of Cyclone Yaas was felt from North 24 Parganas to Eastern Bashirhat. In East Midnapore, roads have been flooded, impacting movement. In Digha too, high waves are rising in the sea with strong winds. NDRF is involved in relief and rescue operations in Kolkata and in Digha. NDRF personnel are doing all they can to evacuate people to safer places. They're also clearing roads. Many parts of Jharkhand too have been impacted by cyclone storm Yaas. Rains with strong winds continue to lash many districts of the state. According to the Met Department, heavy rains are expected in Chaibasa, Simdega and Gumla districts. Administration is fully prepared to deal with any emergency situation. For the time being, Cyclone Yaas has moved on after making landfall along the Odisha coast. but it has left behind a trail of destruction. Now the challenge is to get life back on track as soon as possible and reduce the damage in other states. With inputs from Bhubaneswar and Kolkata Bureau, O.P. Yadav in Balasore and Tapas Bhattacharya in Delhi. Bureau Report, DD India.
In other news, massive gatherings of farmers were reported as the ongoing protests against the 3 farm laws completed some 6 months. COVID-appropriate behavior went for a toss as the norms of social distancing and masks were violated by the gatherings. Meanwhile, political parties are also trying to derive maximum mileage over the protests amidst the pandemic. COVID pandemic has been raging across the nation, and while many states are struggling to contain the surge and have imposed lockdowns, farmers' protests are openly violating the COVID guidelines. The ongoing farmers' protest against the 3 farm laws completed 6 months on Wednesday. On the occasion, Sanyukt Kisan Morcha called for nationwide protest at a time when the nation is battling the pandemic and COVID-appropriate behavior is paramount. Black Day protest by farmers' bodies openly violated the COVID guidelines. Farmers gathered in huge numbers at Ghazipur border, Tikri border and Singhu border. There was no social distancing. Many were not even wearing face masks. Responding to the call by Sanyukt Kisan Morcha, farmers from Punjab and Haryana arrived at Delhi borders. India is yet to recover from the deadly second wave of COVID-19. Situation is improving in the cities, but there is no update on how badly rural India may be impacted. Amid such uncertainty, movement of farmers from villages to the city and subsequently the return trip is very dangerous and can even become a reason for tragic consequences. Even amidst the pandemic, political parties are not shying away from deriving political mileage from the crisis. While the Congress and allies raised objections on big public rallies during recently concluded state elections, the same parties have come out in support of mass protests by farmers. BJP has questioned the double standards of these parties.
किसान आंदोलन से जुड़े हुए नेता एक भी कृषि कानून में संशोधन का सुझाव नहीं दे पाए, केवल इस बात पे अड़े हैं कि ये कृषि कानून रद्द हो जो पार्लियामेंट से पास हुआ ध्वनिमत से और किसानों के हक में है। तो आज इसको लेकर के जिस तरीके से विपक्षी पार्टियां उनको समर्थन दे रही, तो आज तो उनका चरित्र उजागर हो गया कि सदन में उन्होंने इस विधेयक के समर्थन में बात कही, उसको पास किया और आज यहाँ पे उस आंदोलन के साथ खड़े हैं। तो ये कोई किसान के हितैषी नहीं है, ये केवल राजनीति हो रही है।
Government has explored number of possibilities to end the ongoing farmers' protests. Union Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar held many rounds of talks with farmer bodies. Government gave the option of postponing the laws, but farmers refused to budge from their stand. Supreme Court formed a committee to tackle the situation, but the farmers refused to be a part of it. Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself offered to talk to any farmer leader directly if needed, adding that he is only a phone call away. But that too did not quell the protests. Amidst the raging pandemic, mass protests led by farmers is not only a big risk for them, but also a cause of deep worry for public health at large. With Anuj Yadav in Delhi, Bureau Report, DD India. On to a big story now. The origin of coronavirus that causes COVID-19 is hotly contested. On and off, the debate has been kept alive in the international media, in the corridors of powers that focuses on the origin of the deadly virus. And in almost all the debates, the needle revolves around vigorously before resting undecidedly whether the virus originated from natural source or from China's Wuhan Institute of Virology. Now, a Wall Street Journal report has proven to be a catalyst for further investigations into the entire episode. And as earlier, China remains at the center of the latest developments. Here's more.
As the world battles the COVID-19 pandemic, the debate about the origin of the deadly virus has returned to grab attention and headlines across the globe. It started with a report in the Wall Street Journal in the US. The report said that 3 researchers from China's Wuhan Institute of Virology sought hospital care in November 2019. That is a month before China reported the first cases of the novel coronavirus. US intelligence agencies are examining similar reports. But with each passing day, the chorus is growing stronger and stronger for a detailed investigation, particularly at ground zero. Now, top US infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci has called for further investigations into the origins of the coronavirus. However, he added that he and other experts felt it was more likely naturally occurring. At the same time, during the White House COVID-19 briefing, senior advisor Andy Slavitt said finding the origin of the virus that has killed a reported 3.5 million people worldwide was a critical priority. Earlier, the United States called for international experts to be allowed to evaluate the source of the coronavirus and the early days of the outbreak in a second phase of an investigation into the origins of COVID-19. US Health Secretary Xavier Becerra called for international experts to be allowed to further evaluate the source of COVID-19 in a second phase investigation, but refrained from mentioning China directly.
Phase 2 of the COVID origin study must be launched with terms of reference that are transparent, science-based, and give international experts the independence to fully assess the source of the virus and the early days of the outbreak. As member states of the WHO, we need to come together and finish this fight against COVID, our greatest test. We need to fully implement and adhere to obligations under the international health regulations. We need to improve transparency, immediately share critical information about outbreaks with pandemic potential, and strengthen health systems to withstand shocks.
As earlier, China's foreign ministry has dismissed the claims as completely untrue that 3 staff members at the Wuhan lab had fallen ill.
The Wuhan Institute of Virology, Chinese Academy of Sciences, issued a relevant statement on 23rd March this year. It stated that before 30th December 2019, coronavirus was not contracted at the Wuhan Institute.
Meanwhile, 2 US congressional officials have told Reuters that the Senate and House of Representatives intelligence committees are conducting their own investigations into the origins of COVID-19 and how the Trump administration responded to the crisis. Last week, the US House Committee's Republican minority issued a report focusing particularly on the Wuhan Institute of Virology, asserting that there was significant circumstantial evidence that COVID-19 outbreak may have been the result of a leak from the lab. The jury, however, is still awaited. Bureau Report, DD News.
That brings us to the issue in focus this evening. New leads in coronavirus origin is what we'll talk about. 2 eminent guests joining me for this conversation and discussion. Professor Harshvardhan Pant, Distinguished Fellow, Observer Research Foundation, ORF, and Senior Journalist Atul Aneja. Good evening and welcome to both of you. Harsh, if I can begin with you. If you look at the Wall Street Journal report, shady developments at Wuhan Institute of Virology. Shockingly, researchers there allegedly felt sick with COVID-like symptoms before global outbreak of COVID was reported. And the arrow of investigation, once again, points at one country. Is that surprising?
No, I don't think it's surprising, because the way the whole episode has been covered, the way it has been investigated, the way Chinese have responded does not generate any confidence in any part of the world that a thorough investigation has been held, a thorough investigation has been managed, and we know anything more than we knew at this point last year. So, we are coming back to the same questions that we were debating last year at this particular point in time,
right, when
we were talking about, what are the sources of this virus? How did it happen? What led to it? Is it natural? Is it lab-based? So all those questions are back in a way that was supposed to happen, because that's the way the WHO had conducted itself, its investigation. That's the way Chinese have pressurized the organization. And that's the larger sort of a setup in which we have been looking at this conversation from happening. So I think the trend lines were very clear from the very beginning that we are not going to see any substantive movement on this front, despite China being on the back foot in the initial days. Of course, now today China is resurgent. China is much more, comfortable in its economic space, in its political space, as it jostles for power with major powers. So I don't think China is in any position or is any mood to give in. If it did not give in last year, it's not going to give in now. The questions remain the same. Drip by drip, we are seeing drop by drop, we are seeing evidence dripping out from China, and that will continue to happen. Eventually, we will get the full picture, but I think that by the time it might be too late. So I think the question now for the international community, for international organizations like WHO in particular, is to see what we can do with whatever we have, because it doesn't seem to me that there is enough will at the moment, despite the scientists saying now that we need to relook at the evidence. We perhaps need to relook at what has happened from the very beginning. Those questions are being asked not simply by politicians, as China seems to be suggesting, but by scientists who at one point dismissed the theory of that this was a leak from the lab. Now they are saying we need to look at all the possible suggestions, all the possible avenues, and that's not happening. So I think we will be coming back to this story again and again, and now this is just the beginning of the tip of the iceberg.
Right. It is rather ironic and tragic how we are, as Harshu say, that where we were last year as far as origin is concerned. Atul, we are where we were about the origin, but meanwhile the pandemic has ravaged humanity and India has also borne the worst of it. How do you reflect on the manner in which investigation, if any, has really progressed in shadows in all this while?
Unfortunately, I couldn't hear the audio of your other guest.
Yes, Atul. Yeah. So we're talking about the leads in the coronavirus investigation, and how do you look at the manner in which the investigation so far, despite so much destruction of humanity, has really progressed in shadows? We don't know anything about the origin.
Absolutely. I think I completely agree with you on that, because there are glaring lacunas in the investigation, the first round of which was carried out by WHO investigators. The records of Wuhan Institute of Virology, where we know that research called gain of function research, which essentially meant that genetically modified viruses, coronaviruses, were experimented. That's public knowledge. So that was going on within the Wuhan Institute of Virology. We know also from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, frankly, the most authoritative article which I have read, it goes beyond what the Wall Street Journal says, is that this experiment was carried out by a lady called Shi Wingley. I'm sorry, I'm not getting the full name right. But there is the name of the researcher who was involved in this research with creating these genetically modified viruses. She was also called the bat lady because she was using, collecting bats for this experimentation and using the coronavirus on bats to do this genetically modified genetic modification on the virus, on the SARS viruses. Now the question is that we know that this experiment was being done. So therefore the natural suspicion is that was the experimentation going to the level of developing the COVID-19 virus as well artificially? And that's a genuine case for investigation, which so far no investigators have been allowed because no records have been revealed about the kind of research which is going on in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Right.
That would give a very strong indication as to what was, if this research was going on, which is likely, and therefore the circumstantial evidence is pointing to that. Then in that case, the theory that the virus emerged not from natural causes, but would have been a leak from experiments which were carried on in WIV, that Wuhan Institute of Virology. Second thing which I think the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists does say is that why is it that it was being carried out in a lab which did not have the required safety requirements to do such experiments. That is the gain of function experiments. That is also established. Third, why is it that the Chinese authorities are so keen on saying that it came from natural causes? If the jury is out, they should be open about an investigation taking place, but they aren't. There seems to be a rush to propose to sort of expand on this theory and to propagate this theory that it emerged from natural causes. So all these are pointers,
right,
and indicators, nothing conclusive, but that a deeper investigation is required, specifically in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, to check whether it would have been natural causes or, frankly, it's an experiment gone wrong and it leaked from there.
Right. Atul, you've made a point. Harsh, this resistance that China has consistently maintained ever since COVID-19 coronavirus has started making news and started causing the destruction it has, this resistance itself speaks volumes about the possibility of what could lie behind the shadows of investigation.
Yes, I think that is the real question here that, as Atul was pointing out, why is it, the more China resists, the more China makes it difficult for such an investigation to be carried out, then the more fingers will be pointed at it. And as we
because
know,
if there is
last
nothing to
year they tried
hide,
to
why
whitewash
this
the
resistance?
investigation. They tried to push WHO in a certain direction. And the result is that now as more investigations are being carried out, as scientists are looking at it more closely, as journalists are looking at it more closely, I think there are certain revelations that are coming out. We know, for example, how certain reports from US intelligence are pointing to some episodes, some specific evidence that they are pointing out, which can be extremely problematic for China. But I think this is a larger question. It's a question about how do we want to run this world at a time when even on public health issues, a country like China, one of the most important stakeholders in global governance today, is not willing to step up to the plate. And this is a the real issue for international community, for China, for its neighbors, for a country like India. We sit beside China. We are China's neighbors, closest neighbors. And if such things can happen, if this kind of weaponization forget technology. Now we are looking at bioweaponization, biowarfare issues. If this continues, then what prevents us from escalating to a point where other countries start taking actions, against certain other countries, and then you end up in a spiraling circle. So unless you are transparent, unless you are willing to put all the information for the world, for an independent assortment of assessors to assess, it becomes very difficult, and we will never be able to come to an assessment of what happened, how it happened. There will always be suspicions around it, and China will always be at the heart of it. So at the end of the day, it is important for China to come out clean on this question, because unless it does it, we are not going to see a final resolution of this problem, of course, because we are not going to see the kind of medical support that is needed to fight this menace. But also at the same time, we will continue to see suspicions, the fingers being pointed at China, and China being always targeted for this reason. And it is therefore important for both international community and for China to come to terms with this reality. Unfortunately, we don't see that happening. But I think that's the reality that we will have to live with, because that's the kind of an architecture, global governance architecture, that China seems most comfortable with, which is quite unfortunate, given its growing role in global governance, given its growing role in multilateral institutions. And if an institution like WHO can be manipulated like this, if it does not have the authority to actually deal with the kind of...
And Atul, if I could get that final comment from you on...
this moment is facing, then that's a big challenge.
On the credibility of WHO, the institution that the international community perhaps looks up to find the answers. Even that credibility in the past year or so we've seen has taken a beating. The initial research findings that came out, there was widespread discontent. What is the road ahead, according to you, then, if an international global institution, organization is not able to credibly investigate into a matter like this?
I think there are grave questions which are to be asked of the WHO as to why it has not come forth with the entire information or encourage a second probe, further investigation into the origins of coronavirus. Is WHO also has something to hide? We don't know. So the whole organization has come under a cloud, and it's therefore very necessary that we have a detailed, credible, scientific investigation, impartial an investigation and probe into the origins of COVID-19. And if something comes out of that, and it is found out that the WHO fell short of its duties, then I think it's a call for WHO reforms because we need
Right.
a solid and impartial institution to govern global health.
Right. And perhaps an opportunity lies with the international organization as the World Health Assembly is scheduled in the days ahead to perhaps once again look into the manner in which investigation into coronavirus has went on so far. Meanwhile, thanks very much, Professor Harshvardhan Pant, Atul Aneja, for joining us in the program and sharing your perspective. Moving on, let's get an update on the COVID situation from across India. Some 208,000 daily new cases of coronavirus were registered in the last 24 hours. The weekly positivity rate is currently at 11.45%, while the daily positivity rate has reduced and now stands at under 10, that's 9.42%. National recovery rate has grown further to touch 89.66%. Cumulatively, active caseload of COVID has also reduced to 24,95,591. Meanwhile, all efforts are on to tackle with the situation. Indian Railways is continuing its journey of bringing relief by delivering the crucial liquid medical oxygen to various states across the country. Here's more.
India's active caseload continues to decline. Daily recoveries continue to outnumber daily new cases for the 13th consecutive day. 208,921 daily new cases were registered in the last 24 hours. The weekly positivity rate is currently at 11.45%, while the daily positivity rate has reduced and now stands at 9.42%. The national recovery rate has grown further to touch 89.66%. Cumulatively, the active caseload has also now reduced to 24,95,591. A net decline of 91,191 was witnessed in the last 24 hours. Besides, the centre is also providing vials of amphotericin B drug used in the treatment of mucormycosis to all states and UTs. In a tweet, Union Minister for Chemicals and Fertilizers D.V. Sadanand Gowda said additional 29,250 vials of amphotericin B drug used in the treatment of mucormycosis have been allocated to all the states and UTs today. The allocation has been made based on the number of patients under treatment, which is 11,717 across the country. While on May 24th, the government had allocated additional 19,420 vials of amphotericin B to the states. Overcoming all hurdles and finding new solutions, Indian Railways is continuing its journey of bringing relief by delivering liquid medical oxygen to various states across the country. So far, oxygen relief by oxygen expresses have reached out to 15 states. Indian Railways has delivered more than 17,945 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen in more than 1,080 tankers to various states across the country. 272 oxygen expresses have completed their journey so far and brought relief to various states. In a scale-up of operations which continued till late Tuesday night, 12 oxygen expresses with 969 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen started their journeys from cyclone-hit eastern states and beat tough weather to take relief to those states. These 12 oxygen expresses include 3 trains for Tamil Nadu, 4 trains for Andhra Pradesh and 1 each for Delhi region, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Assam and Kerala. The cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country exceeded 20.25 crores. As on day 131 of the vaccination drive, a total of 17,19,931 vaccine doses were given. Over 42% of the population aged 60 years and above in India has received at least first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. States have been urged repeatedly to keep vaccine wastage below 1%. Many states such as Jharkhand at 37.3%, Chhattisgarh at 30.2%, Tamil Nadu at 15.5%, Jammu and Kashmir at 10.8%, Madhya Pradesh at 10.7% are reporting much higher wastage than the national average, which is 6.3%. While in Delhi, the positivity rate declined to 1.93%. Delhi recorded 1,491 fresh coronavirus cases and 130 fatalities on Wednesday. The active cases have come down to 19,148.
पॉजिटिविटी एक टाइम पर 36% तक चली गई थी, जो धीरे धीरे कम होते हुए अब 2% के आसपास आ गई है। पॉजिटिविटी भी कम है, नंबर ऑफ केसेस भी पहले से कम है। मुझे लगता है इसका सीधा सीधा असर लॉकडाउन की वजह से दिखाई दे रहा है। हॉस्पिटल्स के अंदर जो बेड ऑक्यूपेंसी है वो भी अब बेड काफ़ी बड़ी संख्या में हमारे पास खाली हैं।
Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal on Wednesday inaugurated Delhi's first drive-through vaccination centre at Dwarka. Such a centre will help in speedy vaccination while reducing the risk of virus transmission. COVID-19 situation is improving in many parts of the country. In Uttar Pradesh, the recovery rate has climbed to 95%. 3,371 new daily cases were reported in the last 24 hours, while the positivity rate has further declined to 3.5%. Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath is continuously making visits to various parts of the state to take stock of the situation. He visited Devariya and Kushinagar on Wednesday. He inspected the integrated COVID command center in Devariya. Besides, he also held meeting with officials, people's representatives to take stock of the situation.
Early and aggressive जो कैंपेन स्टेट ने चलाया, गांव-गांव में, मोहल्ले-मोहल्ले में निगरानी समितियों को भेज करके उनके माध्यम से मेडिसिन किट वितरित होना, अगले 24 घंटे के अंदर एंटीजन टेस्ट के माध्यम से हर एक लक्षण युक्त व्यक्ति का टेस्ट करना, यह कार्यक्रम तेजी के साथ आगे बढ़ा। आज उसका परिणाम है कि उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर पॉजिटिविटी 3 के आसपास रह गई है। उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर रिकवरी 95% से अधिक पहुंच गई है और लगातार इसमें सुधार है।
In Haryana, the state government has floated global tenders for the supply of 1 crore doses of COVID-19 vaccine.
1 करोड़ कोरोना वैक्सीन के लिए हम टेंडर फ्लोट कर रहे हैं। शायद आज हो जाएगा। एंटी कोरोना गोली का निर्माण किया है और जिसके बारे में कहा जा रहा है कि उसमें ऑक्सीजन की डिपेंडेंस कम हो जाती है और मरीज जल्दी नेगेटिव हो जाता है, तो हमने भी 50,000 गोली के लिए डिमांड की।
However, there are many states in the country which are still in the grip of coronavirus. The infection rates in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka are still a cause of concern. We all hope that we tide over the second wave of COVID-19 in all these states as soon as possible. Bureau Report, DD India.
Moving on, BJP national spokesperson Sambit Patra has slammed Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal for playing politics over COVID vaccination. Addressing a press conference, Sambit Patra said that 1.5 lakh vaccines are till now available with the Delhi government. He also demanded that Arvind Kejriwal should extend apology rather than playing politics in such situations.
दुख की बात यह है कि ऐसी परिस्थिति में भी राजनीति हो रही है। आप कह रहे हैं कि दिल्ली के पास वैक्सीन नहीं है। आदरणीय केजरीवाल जी, हम ये कहना चाहते हैं कि आज भी जब ये प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस हो रहा है, 1.5 लाख से अधिक वैक्सीन आज दिल्ली सरकार के पास मौजूद है। 1.5 लाख से अधिक, और 1.5 लाख कोई छोटी संख्या नहीं होती है। आप इसको मैनेज करिए। गलती आपसे हुई है और गलती मानने से केजरीवाल जी कोई छोटा नहीं होता है। आप तो गलती मान लेते हैं, माफी भी मांगते हैं। मुझे लगता है आपको माफी मांगनी चाहिए। ऐसी परिस्थिति में राजनीति नहीं करनी चाहिए।
Buddha Purnima is being celebrated all across the world. Celebrated on full moon night in the month of Vaishakh, Buddha Purnima marks the birth anniversary of Siddhartha Gautam. The day marks 3 important events in Buddha's life: his birth, his attaining enlightenment, and his death, parinirvana. Prime Minister Narendra Modi remembered the noble ideals of Lord Buddha at an event organized by the Ministry of Culture in collaboration with the International Buddhist Confederation.
Remembering Lord Buddha's noble ideals of peace, love, compassion, brotherhood and tolerance during such testing times of COVID-19, Prime Minister Narendra Modi saluted the tireless efforts of all COVID warriors in their service to humanity and alleviating as much human suffering as possible. Virtually addressing the International Buddhist Confederation along with Prime Ministers of Nepal and Sri Lanka on the occasion of Vaishak global celebrations on Buddha Purnima, Prime Minister Modi hailed the efforts of Indian scientists for developing COVID-19 vaccines.
Through this forum, I would like to once again salute our first responders, frontline healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, volunteers who selflessly risk their lives every day to serve others in need. To those who have suffered and lost their near and dear ones, I would like to extend condolences. I grieve with them, but over the last year, there have been many noteworthy changes as well. Most importantly, we have the vaccine, which is absolutely important to save lives and defeat the pandemic. India is proud of our scientists who have worked on the COVID-19 vaccines.
There is no doubt that the world has seen immense suffering due to the invisible enemy of COVID-19, both in terms of loss of lives and shutting down of economies due to subsequent lockdowns. And the suffering is far from over yet as the virus continues to mutate and wreak havoc through its different waves in many parts of the world. It is only in times like these we understand the teachings of Lord Buddha much better.
By studying the life of Lord Buddha, there is mention of the 4 sights. These 4 sights brought Lord Buddha face to face with human suffering. At the same time, it ignited within him the desire to devote his life to removing human suffering.
The life of Gautam Buddha was all about peace, harmony and coexistence. Prime Minister Narendra Modi further urged all to come together and defeat terror and radicalization.
The life of Gautam Buddha was about peace, harmony and coexistence. Today, there are still forces remaining whose existence depends on spreading hate, terror and mindless violence. Such forces do not believe in liberal democratic principles. The need of the hour is for all those who believe in humanity to come together and defeat terror and radicalization.
In the words of the Prime Minister himself, we will certainly remember events as either pre-COVID or post-COVID. But what we will also certainly remember is that how humanity was humbled by the outpouring of generosity and support from Samaritans who came forward like true warriors and helped all without any motive. Their selfless acts of service teach us the true meaning of life. As Lord Buddha said, Appadipo Bhava, which means be the light you wish to see in the world. Bureau Report, DD India.
And President Ramnath Kovind, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu and Home Minister Amit Shah extended greetings to everyone on the auspicious occasion of Buddha Purnima. President tweeted and he said in his message, Buddha Purnima greetings to everyone. The teachings of Lord Buddha shows us the path of liberation from suffering. Let us follow the path of wisdom, compassion and service shown by Buddha and get rid of COVID-19 through our collective resolve and concerted efforts. And in his message, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has said that my warm greetings to everyone on the occasion of Buddha Purnima. Lord Buddha's eternal message of peace, brotherhood and compassion continues to inspire humanity across the globe. On this occasion, let us commit ourselves to the path of compassion and tolerance shown by Lord Buddha. And External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is on a 5-day visit to the United States. He's in a conversation with General H.R. McMaster on a session on India, opportunities and challenges for a strategic partnership.
International society, that, you know, this term, the world is a family, is very deeply embedded in Indian thinking. And a lot of the challenges of today, the interplay of powers, their relationship, the interdependence, the constraints on power. For me, an important question, ethics. You know, how much does ethics matter at all? And if so, what is the role of ethics? I mean, you would perhaps in today's world talk about branding and reputational and soft power. But at the end of the day, ethics is at the heart of that. So it's an attempt really to use these analogies to both make Indians understand the world, as well as the world understand that there are great traditions of statecraft and diplomacy. And I would say almost, you can say, multipolar politics in India, which is very, very appropriate for this day and age.
Right. Well, Minister, I know we had long conversations about this, about really our approach to a free and open Indo-Pacific. I remember, I think it was my first day or one of my first 2 days maybe, as I unexpectedly arrived in Washington, that I had the opportunity to host you in my office, and we took out a map and we talked really about how important it was to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific as an alternative to a closed authoritarian model. And it was clear from that conversation that it was in U.S. interests that India have a stronger voice, an even stronger voice than it had in the past, because of our shared values, because of our shared principles. And I wonder if you might talk about your vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific, and then maybe also talk about this crisis that we feel in democratic nations these days, right? There are doubts, I think, across the free world about the effectiveness of democratic processes and institutions.
Well, look, let me start with the last observation. I don't know if there are doubts in other parts of the world. I want to tell you very bluntly, there are no doubts in India. I mean, we Indians are extremely confident about our democracy. We believe that that's really the political system and the value system that suits us. That's because, as I said, it captures our fundamental diversity and the culture of really reasoning and coming to positions, and an acceptance of what the rules of the day throughout. So over the last 75 years, I think we've held multiple elections. We've had peaceful transitions of power. There are elections at different levels. One test of which is, of course, that if you have changes in the party in power at different levels, that itself is proof that democracy is working. And I don't think anybody in India would trade democracy for an alternative form of governance.
That was External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar in a conversation focusing on the issue of strategic partnership between India and United States. Moving on, the government has issued a clarification on WhatsApp's lawsuit against the new IT rules. In a detailed note, the centre has absolutely demolished all the opposition to the new rules under any pretext. In a point-by-point rebuttal, centre has sought to allay any unnecessary fear and objections to the new IT rules. It has said that any operations being run in India are subject to the law of the land. WhatsApp's refusal to comply with the guidelines is a clear act of defiance of a measure whose intent can certainly not be doubted. As WhatsApp alleged that the new rules will end privacy, centre has replied that as per all the established judicial dictum, no fundamental right, including right to privacy, is absolute and it is subject to reasonable restrictions. Further, it has allayed fears to right to privacy. The rule is in abiding public interest. It added that it is very important to note that such an order to trace first originator under Rule 4(2) of the said guidelines will be passed only for the purposes of prevention, investigation, punishments and so on of an offence relating to sovereignty, integrity and security of India. Public order incitement to an offence relating to rape, sexually explicit material or child sexual abuse material punishable with imprisonment for not less than 5 years. It is clearly stated that it is not any individual who can trace the first originator of information. However, the same can only be done by a process sanctioned by the law. Additionally, this has also been developed as a last resort measure only in scenarios where other remedies have proven to be ineffective. Centre has made it clear that rules as per law of land have to be respected. It said that Rule 4 Part 2 of the intermediary guidelines is not a measure in isolation. The rules have been framed after consultation with various stakeholders and social media intermediaries, including but not limited to WhatsApp. WhatsApp's challenge at the very last moment, and despite having sufficient time and opportunity available during the consultation process and after the rules were enacted to the intermediary guidelines, is an unfortunate attempt to prevent the same from coming into effect. Further, Indian government has said that the rules enacted by the government of India in public interest are not rules enacted in isolation but have global precedence. What India is asking for is significantly much less than what some of the other countries have demanded, including government of United Kingdom, United States, Australia, New Zealand and Canada. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a phone call conversation with Emmanuel Macron, President of the French Republic. Prime Minister Modi thanked President Macron for assistance rendered by France to India's COVID response. The leaders discussed bilateral, regional and global issues of mutual interest and expressed their satisfaction at the positive outcome of the recently concluded India-EU leaders meeting. Both the leaders agreed that announcements regarding a resumption of negotiations for balanced and comprehensive free trade and investment agreements and India-EU connectivity partnership were welcome steps. The two leaders expressed satisfaction at the depth and strength that India-France strategic partnership has acquired in the recent years and agreed to continue working closely together in the post-COVID era. Prime Minister Modi also reiterated his invitation to President Macron to visit India as soon as conditions permit. And let's also look at some news and updates from across the country. Coming in, the Goa government has filed an appeal in the Bombay High Court against former editor-in-chief of Tehelka magazine, Tarun Tejpal's acquittal verdict in an alleged sexual assault case. On May 20th, Goa Sessions Court had acquitted Tejpal in the rape case. The Bombay High Court has adjourned the hearing of petition filed by Maharashtra challenging 2 paragraphs in CBI's FIR against ex-Maharashtra Home Minister Anil Deshmukh to June 8th in an alleged corruption case. The High Court has also asked CBI to not take action till the next hearing. In a fresh development in the murder case of wrestler Sagar Dhankar by 2-time Olympic champion Sushil Kumar, the Delhi police nabbed 4 members of the Kala Osada and Neeraj Bhavana gangs. As per reports, the 4 accused received phone call from a person who got them in touch with wrestler Sushil. In Maharashtra, Anti-Corruption Bureau seized 3.46 crore rupees cash from residents of R.A. Milk Residential Colony Chief Executive Officer Nathu Vittal Rathore, who has been arrested in a bribery case. ACB suspected Nathu Rathore for amassing huge amounts of assets disproportionate to his income and hence searched his house, which resulted in recovery of over 3 crore 46 lakh rupees in cash. The Ministry of Women and Child Development has announced to set up one-stop centers aimed at supporting women affected by violence in public and private spaces, not only in India but in foreign missions as well. The scheme is being implemented in collaboration with the Ministry of External Affairs. The MEA has identified 9 countries to set up such OSCs. So far, 3 lakh women have been helped by such one-stop centers. The lunar eclipse is now over, but the total lunar eclipse was not visible in India as it was expected. The total lunar event lasted till 7:19 p.m. The moon was closest to Earth, and therefore lunar eclipse on Wednesday was called a super blood moon. Not only does the moon appears to be bigger and closer to the Earth, it is also reddish orange in color. This was the first total lunar eclipse since January of 2019, since it was a supermoon, which is essentially a full moon at its closest point to the Earth. We witnessed a larger full moon than usual. However, since it is also a total lunar eclipse on the same day, we also saw the moon in its glowing red tone. And with that, we conclude this edition of Newsnight. Namaskar.